Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we're checking out Gunstar Heroes. You know what? No. Wait, I gotta do something.
Ow! What?
You're the goddamn Sega guy, and all the shitty games you've made me play, you never recommended this awesome game? The fuck is wrong with you?
Right, plenty of people talk about this. They all know it's a goddamn good game. We gotta be unique. Ow!
This was originally released in 1993 as a Sega Genesis exclusive. It's the first game to be developed by Treasure, and it was published by Sega. It eventually got ported onto the Game Gear, and was later ported onto all different eShops and collections and crap like that. It's one of those games that, if there's a Sega collection, this will probably be on it. And for good reason. This is widely regarded as one of the best running guns of all time. Does it deserve such praise?
Yes!
Yeah, it pretty much does.
You son of a bitch!
But we'll still explain it anyway.
Bitch!
Gundam.
I'll be honest, there is not much to complain about for the graphics for this game. Let's just start with the actual maps. Now, similar to Mega Man at the beginning, you can choose from the 4 bosses you're going to fight, but then after that, you go through a few gauntlet stages, and one of them is actually outer space. So each one looks very unique, and everything is really detailed. On top of that, in each map, there's a lot of destructible environments, and just a ton of things to blow up. The sheer speed that the screen can move, and with the number of enemies with absolutely no slowdown, is mind-boggling. This game actually runs smoother than Sonic, and you know how we praise the shit out of that, so that's pretty impressive.
Right.
Could you say they really tapped into that blast processing?
You just learned about that from me last week.
No, what? I've always known about blast processing.
Oh yeah, that's your mom that I taught about blast processing. Get it?
Just go and finish. No. Oh, Jesus.
So anyway, the bosses, Jim and I tend to disagree a little bit. I was slightly underwhelmed, other than Seven Force, at the majority of the bosses in this game. But all the other enemies have really detailed expressions on their faces that are all comical. And I like the little touch. I'm going to keep calling the final boss M. Bison. At least that's what he looks like to me. So, with all that being said...
Right, his name is Smash Daisaku. It's awesome.
Yeah, M. Bison. Jim, I think you're going to have to accept that this game is just an amalgamation of other games put together really well. It's like Mega Man, Contra, and Street Fighter put together.
I don't hear anything wrong there.
Exactly. When it comes to scores, I gave it an 8 and Jim gave it a 10. This is where we differ the most, and for me, because the screen was moving so fast, it was kind of hard to focus in on the details, and the enemies did become a little bit repetitive.
My biggest argument for more points was the fact that for a game in 93, that was kind of late in the Genesis's life, but they still pulled off so many visual tricks with pseudo 3D bosses and all the different kind of somewhat vectored and cube-like stuff that you'd eventually see in, say, Vector Man or later Konami releases. So it was really ahead of its time, too.
Jim, you'll just give 9 and 10s to everything.
All right, recent comment section.
When it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 1 for Jim not telling me about this goddamn game.
Gundam.
Hate you.
The sound. Overall, the package is really, really good. Here's a problem for us. I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to say that this is some legendary soundtrack or it's extremely memorable. For us, unfortunately, we played it so late in our life that we can't say it's exactly standout memorable or that we're really humming the tunes that much after we were done playing. But we will fully admit these are really well-produced tracks. So, the music is awesome. I don't know if it's quite legendary. And the sound effects are fine. They get the job done, and for all the different weapons you have, they sound slightly different, which is good. There's the tiniest little bit of voice in the game, with laughing and shit like that. So, they do a good job of throwing some little things in there here and there, but the main gist of it is the music, and it's good. So we both gave it 8s. We have no complaints. And when it comes to beer, I'm just going to give it 1 beer because of all the times I had to hear Smash Daisaku laugh at me because he kept kicking my butt.
M. Bison.
Well, kind of Hitler, but then they said get rid of the mustache.
What?
Yep.
Good choice. The control. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because honestly, we found no fault with it. Even though it had to deal with that original terrible 3-button Sega controller, they maximized the use of that with this game. You had a shoot, a jump, and then a button to switch your weapons around as you pick up different power-ups. Now in combination, if you did down and jump, you would do your slide, or if you kept hitting jump near the walls, You could do the ninja jump, and if you were near an enemy and you hit attack or shoot, it would do a melee throw. So it was very simple, very easy to use, and depending on which character you were, you could stand and shoot in every direction. We had no issues with it, and that's why we had to give it 10s. And when it comes to beer, I'm going to add 1 for the Jim's Fury for me shitting on that first 3-button controller for the Genesis.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Get a 6-button controller?
Yeah, it's fucking 2018. Stop bitching about how pricey it was in 92.
Did you really just run out of breath saying that sentence?
I played more video games than I did push-ups.
This is true. Fuck!
Can I get to my next section, please?
Go do a lap!
No, then we'll never get this done.
Alright, the gameplay. Well, at its simplest, it's a run and gun, and it's a really good run and gun. So if you know of games like Contra, think Contra, but cuter. The main gimmick of the game, though, is the fact that you have the 4 weapon types that you can combine to make over 14 different combinations, I believe. So the basic ones are Force, which is just a bunch of small bullets, Lightning, which fires straight lasers that can go through enemies, Chaser, which is the green one that fires and, chases down enemies, and Flame, which is a short-range flamethrower. And yes, I read that off Wikipedia. It's easier that way. Sue me. But the main fun of it comes from just trying out all the different weapon combinations that you can do. Unfortunately, there's one big problem with it, and you're probably going to see it a lot in this gameplay footage, and it's the fact that when you combine Chaser with Force, you basically break the game. It just follows the guys and just keeps honing in on them and just melting enemies. It makes the game a lot easier, and it's great for us for video capture, but if you want to challenge yourself a little more, I would suggest not using this combination, but goddamn is it fun to use, and it's so useful against bosses. Outside of that, holy crap is this a really good game. So you have your 2 main characters, and Red is able to purely run and gun, while Blue is a fixed shot, but he can fire in all directions. So it kind of gives you a little bit more strategy depending on which character you pick. And then if you do 2-player mode, one's one and one's the other, so try to be Red. You have the 4 main stages, which you can do in any order, and as you progress through them, you actually gain a little bit more life from level to level. So if you're having trouble with one level, you can always restart, go in a different order, and then get to the harder level with a lot more life and make it a little easier on yourself. Speaking of lives, you only get 1 life in this game, but you have infinite continues. So even on the hardest difficulties, the game is very, very beatable. It just comes down to if you want to sit down and beat the whole thing. So when it comes to the gameplay, it actually varies it up a bit too, because you have this random dice level, which is probably the low point of the game because you can hit things and you can go back to the beginning, so this can, depending on your luck, take way too goddamn long, even though if it does have some of the coolest looking boss designs in the game.
Hey Jim, I didn't have no problem with the dice level. I went through on 1 try.
Well, lucky goddamn you, Brian. And then you also had the random shooter level, which was a nice surprise.
Wait, what?
What?
The whole goddamn game is a shooter level. It's a shooter, side-scrolling shooter. What the fuck are you talking about?
Space shooter.
Be specific.
I'm
gonna start calling you Fredo.
I'm smart. Michael, you never let me do things. So, I'm babbling enough. This game's fun, and it really is just about as perfect as a run and gun game, or action game, or co-op game is going to be for a 16-bit era, or of any era. But we both gave it 9s because of that one problem that breaks the game, like we talked about, with the chaser lasers. So, outside of that, it's basically perfect. And when it comes to beer, you don't need any.
The originality is honestly the lowest point for this game, but I think we've praised the balls off of this game enough, and honestly, it is an amalgamation of all the games, like I said earlier. It has the Contra feel. I keep joking, but honestly, some of their character designs remind me of villains from other games, and we've seen power-ups before from Mega Man, and even to going down to selecting the boss you fight. Other than combining the powers, that is the most unique thing we saw in this game. Unfortunately, we could only give this game 3s. Doesn't take away from how impressive this game is, it just combined a lot of things we've seen before in a really well done way. So, I'm not even gonna add beers. We're still impressed with how good this game came together.
So, for playability, it's basically everything we've talked about before. You get multiplayer, so you get the 5 automatically from us. And Brad kind of stopped there, but I gave it that 1 extra point just because of the fact that you can play the first 4 levels any way you want, and you can pick one of the 2 characters. Not a huge difference, but it is a little bit of variation. So, Brad gave it a 5, and I gave it a 6. When it comes to beer, I'll just give 1 beer for the dents in the overall score we're giving it.
Overall, this was a game I legitimately was mad when I beat in my first playthrough because I wish I played this as a kid. To Jim's point, if I did any true research on Sega Genesis best games or watched other videos, there are plenty of people that talk about it, but I feel like it doesn't get quite as much of attention as some of the other Sega titles that you may see on this list. And it really is one of the best shooters. It's definitely my favorite shooter off the Sega Genesis, at least off the top of my head right now. And it's definitely in my top 5 favorite for sure. So it's a game that if you haven't tried by now, do yourself a favor, go out. I don't know how much it costs. Buy it though, and I promise you won't regret it.
Now, Brian, big question. This or Contra 3?
Oh, I still go with Contra 3. But that's nostalgia because I played the shit out of that game.
Fair.
And that game lasts longer. And it's on the far superior console.
Oh.
It's on the far superior console that was chosen by our fans.
The fans are wrong.
Overall, I gave it a 9, Jim gave it a 10. The only reason I didn't give it a perfect score were some of the flaws we mentioned. If a game doesn't have a super memorable soundtrack for me or doesn't give me much of a challenge, it's tough for me to give it that perfect score. But either way, this is obviously well above average, and when we combine all of our scores together, it rounds out to an 8.8, which actually ties Sonic 2. Now, if I gotta be honest, I had more fun with this game than Sonic 2, even if Sonic 2 probably is technically a better game all around.
Holy God, what a first outing for Treasure, though.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park. Where are they now?
They've always been kind of a niche developer, but they have a ridiculously loyal fan base.
So they busted their load fast?
No, they made a lot of good games.
So they busted their load fast.
God damn it.
When it comes to beer pairing, you know I had to pick something special. So I went with one of my favorite beers from the Evil Twin Brewing Company, and that's their Imperial Donut Break Glazed. This is a delicious porter that comes in at 11.5%. It has good flavors of biscotti, of coffee, and it just all around has a really good flavor to it. And being 11.5%, one of these bottles should get you through an entire game of Gunstar Heroes. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.